Well, greetings, everybody. We unfortunately could not get together to record a new show this week, so I was diving into the archives and I stumbled across this fun little episode. It was listed as a soup de jour story, but it was really just kind of a quick summary about a pretty interesting serial killer case, if you haven't heard of the tale of the torso killer. So many bizarre elements to that case. Including a very unheroic appearance by Elliot Ness. So listen for that. But mostly I just got into the back and forth, shoot the shit stuff on this show. Radar Station was just getting rocking and rolling at that time. And that led to a chat about cassette tapes and records and CDs. All of those sort of coming back in a time of streaming, which I think the conversation kind of holds up. I mean, it's only a few years old. This episode came out in 2017, I believe it must have. But then it was a really fun round of weird trivia, some good laughs in there. So I thought I would just pull this one out. Of course, back then we called it News Quiz. Still do sometimes. And at the very end, it's interesting how some things pop up that we were just talking about. And we were just talking about how things pop up. It's hard to know. I feel like I've done this enough to know that it's not just that we're super repetitive. It has to be acknowledged that we do repeat ourselves and tell the same stories and things jog memories. But there are some interesting things that popped up that we literally just talked about in the last episode. And some other things that, we often have predicted the future, stupid things, mostly on this show. But there is a moment where I pretty much predict very quickly. It goes by in like 10 seconds. We basically predict the premise of Cobra Kai a year or two before the first season came out, which was interesting. We also happened to bring up Chevy Chase being a dick, which is bizarre. Just totally bizarre just hearing you say the same things in the same phrasing basically 4 years ago. Anywho, it's a fun little timestamp, and I even left the original music in. It's been a while since I've heard it, just for nostalgia's sake. It's fun going back through these old episodes, even though some of them make me wince. Different sound quality, different paces of the way that I talk. This one's getting pretty close to it. Basically sounds like the show that you're used to. But we will at some point do a live commentary listen of some of these older episodes, which will be a wacky, fun time and probably something we'll regret. There's some wackiness all the way back there. There's no other way to say it. Anywho, back at it next week, and thanks for tuning in, and do be sure to spread our disease, tell a friend, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a review. We don't say it very often because I get so fucking sick and tired of hearing people beg about those things on other shows, but it's worth bringing up every now and again. It will help the show out. Tune in next week, y'all. 9/11.
Tales from the Space Pod is intended for mature, open-minded audiences only. If you are easily offended, I suggest you turn this wacky shit right off. Otherwise, welcome to the pod.
I don't know about y'all, but every time we put up one of these shows, for the next day or two, I get bombarded with text messages from friends on what their highlights were, usually in the form of a quote on what their highlights were or most memorable moments of this week's podcast. All I was getting for the last week was, all I want is a baby. It's classic stuff.
We talked about, you asked me if I'd heard from her again, and I told you how she'd sent me that one additional Snapchat.
Yeah.
About 5 days after that, on Facebook, I got a message like just the "Hey there" winky face. So a couple more days here, she's bound to come a knocking, I think.
Yeah, you might get some more come here drawings on her titties and rethink some things. Just let the cat spend the night at the neighbor's house in case things go south.
Yeah. But when you have a girl say, "All I wanted to have was a baby," and just say, "All I wanted to get was a blowjob," and let it just progress.
Is that what the kids are calling these days?
Yeah.
Baby. John Mark, you with us?
Yes.
Well, the whole band is all together. Tonight I want to talk a little about the Torso Killer. I have to admit, I had never heard of this story until Art Chantry posted something about it today in just kind of like a throwaway post. So we are going to get into the deets of that. Someone's making an awful lot of noise and needs to mute their mic while they're masturbating.
Yawning really hard.
with pots and pans.
Get to your story, Ron. But before we get on to that, we have some shit to talk about, including a little bit of news. But I wanted to mention something that my whole world lately is getting things ready for the store. Now, we've been open. We've been doing a soft opening, but most people still think we're closed, which is kind of what we wanted. We wanted to sort of ease into a hard opening.
just the tip at first, right? Just the tip.
It's the opposite of a soft opening. I can't stand saying those two words together in a non-sexual way, so I just
opening.
Make it creepy for everybody. But it's been going really well, considering that a lot of people, again, think that we're actually opening this Friday, which is our grand opening in Shen Leidy's art show. But anywho, we're selling a lot of shit, and I'm running out of a lot of the smaller items in the gift shop, like magnets and cards and postcards, stuff like that, stickers, things that are, between $10 and $20. That shit is really going crazy. Oh, hang on. Let me mute all my shit. I always forget.
All I want is a baby.
Here comes text.
I saw muted shit open up for fuck. Damn it.
Butthole.
Couldn't think
really bad at that.
Couldn't think quick enough. You got to stay on your feet with that game, Chris.
Yeah, you do.
Can't get scattershot with it. All right, I think I closed out all my stuff. So, things that are between like $10 to $20, just flying off the fucking shelves. And since I'm hand making most of that stuff, take some time. So I've been thinking outside the box, as they say, that, just different items. And I came across a story late last week about how cassette tapes are starting to make a bit of a comeback. Now, it's nowhere near the level of the vinyl, revival, and even the vinyl revival.
Nor should it be.
Yeah, you're right. But the idea, a lot of people would assume that vinyl is doing better than ever. It's not. It's doing better than it was 10 years ago. But compared to the heyday of vinyl, which was the late 80s, early 90s, we're nowhere near those numbers, and we never will be again, even with this boom. And it seems like vinyl's rocking and rolling, that it is. But, anyway. Cassette tapes, however, now here's the thing. If you want to put your band onto vinyl right now, even if you know a guy that knows a guy, if you're going to go through one of the major pressing plants and, not some sort of lathe cutting vinyl, you really got to wait almost half a year because there are only a couple of them in the nation. Jack White just opened, I think, the third one in Detroit, the third man pressing plant in Detroit. Up until then, there was only a couple of them, and they're so backed up because everyone's gung-ho about vinyl right now. Cassettes, on the other hand, which are also an analog product, is much cheaper to do, way cheaper and much quicker because, there's not a demand. But even if there was that much of a demand, it would be much cheaper because it's a quicker process.
I think it was James Hetfield saying that Metallica bought their own record pressing plant because they couldn't get enough vinyl made to sell their records. So they had to buy their own plant.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it seems insane that we're having this much trouble just keeping records being made, but that shows you how in decline the industry was before it started to have this turnaround.
Do you think that the resurgence of cassette tape popularity has anything to do with this 13 Reasons show? Have you guys heard about this?
No,
because I haven't seen it.
I'm sure that it's helping, but No, because this was happening. That's a brand new show. That's only a couple months old, I think, that show. But
Yeah.
the cassette thing started a few years back with and someone actually started a cassette store day, which is ridiculous because there really aren't any cassette stores, it's like specializing cassettes, but it was obviously a play on the very successful record store day. And I thought kind of a fun idea, but that sort of blown up. Now, going back to your point, Chris, this probably does have something to do with pop culture. I mean, a few years back, we had Guardians of the Galaxy, and they actually put out that soundtrack. There's that whole shtick in the movie where he's constantly popping tapes into...
Awesome Mix Volume 1 or something like that, yeah.
Well, they released that soundtrack as Awesome Mix Volume 1 on that same looking tape. And,
Did they?
And it did really well.
Huh.
Now, a lot of this is... I think started off as a bit of a marketing ploy. And yeah, it appealed to some hipsters because it seemed like a kooky thing to do. Just like we started collecting 8-tracks and vinyl. At first, maybe just for a weird nostalgic thing. That's kind of cool to own. That's why I started. I was like, oh yeah, I remember records. Not that I ever really gave them. My parents threw out all the records that we owned, and I ended up with a cheap record player, so I started buying them when I was about 14 or 15 at Handy Randy's. I was like, oh yeah, fucking Flash Gordon soundtrack. I would just get like kooky shit. And then that's when I discovered, I think these sound pretty great, but I have to say, digging out my own... now, we've talked several times that most of us still have our tapes. Chris, I don't know if you have any tapes.
I don't. I've got nothing.
You got a ton of
CDs
them,
anymore.
Well, CDs, I've given most of mine away, but John Mark's got a pile of tapes. And if you have a decent player and you have decent speakers and you pop your old tapes in for the first time, I think you might be fucking pleasantly surprised, because I was. I've got a pretty nice Pioneer dual cassette number that I just took over to the store, and I'll get to why in a moment. But when I popped in Beastie Boys' Check Your Head, which was my original copy that I had from 93 or 94 when whenever it came out, and I turned it up, I adjusted the levels because I had been playing shit through my iPhone. And I was like, holy shit, this sounds fucking amazing. And then I started playing some other tapes, and, some sound better than others, but I had not really given tapes their fair shake. Now, I hadn't tossed mine out because I have is more of like a sentimental attachment to these tapes. I didn't end up with like 10,000 tapes like I do with records, because I started actively collecting records. Tapes, I had what I had, and I never had much money, and I had to hide most of what I had from my parents so they wouldn't destroy them. So I had, I got maybe like 200 or 300 at the most, the very most. But those are my tapes, man, and we've talked about this before. You peek in that box, and I can just look at them, no matter what order they're arranged in a big pile of tapes. That's my life. Like, that's my diary, and I can see it all right before my eyes. It's the funniest thing. I could spot that pile of tapes in a lineup of 100 piles of tapes. But the audio quality is really, really something to behold. And I did a little bit of comparison just for the hell of it. And, when you're streaming music, which is how most of us do it now, we rarely buy shit on iTunes. I rarely buy shit on iTunes now. It's all about, picking your favorite streaming service. Mine's still Rhapsody, which has become Napster. I know a lot of people use Spotify. Whatever it is, we're usually streaming high quality MP3s.
Yeah.
Well, that is double and triple compressed sometimes. So when you compare that, and that's what we listen to all the time, when you compare that to like even a second or third generation cassette, if it was done proper, it sounds fucking amazing. It's so much richer. And I was really blown away. So anyway, along this way, I almost as a joke decided to put together a cassette tape of Tales from the Space Pod's greatest hits, some of which are already up on our Bandcamp page, and some of which I have not edited into little snippets. So that's something that is going to be available in the store probably by this Friday show. Again, because you can just make the tapes. If you have a tape recorder and a couple of cables and a pile of tapes, you can just make them, right? And it's like I've even burned a few CDs, which is something I never thought I'd do again, honestly. I thought I would only put Bloody Orange's stuff out digitally, but now that I have a store, people are buying the CDs. They're buying the records, and I guarantee you they will buy these tapes. And like I said, I am going to put the two most recent Bloody Oranges albums out onto cassette, and the electronic album that John Mark and I did, The Paranoid Watches of the Universe, will be on cassette. And I'm sort of playing around with the mastering of it right now, which is basically just mixing it to sound good on analog playback. It's crazy how different it sounds, but having a lot of fun playing with that. So get your tape decks out, kids. And I was down at Fred Meyer looking to see if they had blank tapes, and they did. And right next to them were two different brands of Walkman. Not Sony Walkman, the brand, but two different portable tape players. I was like, shit. Maybe it never went away, or maybe it's starting to creep back. I don't know, because that shit was off my radar for years and years.
Yeah.
Still go. Kicking around somewhere.
Yeah. Get them out, because you're going to want a copy of Tales from the Space Pod's Greatest Hits on cassette.
I got to say, when you sent me that idea, I was like, nobody's going to fucking buy that. I was like, I wouldn't even buy it because I don't have a tape player. Mm-hmm. But when I saw the picture of the sleeve and everything, it really took me back for a second. And it was fucking
nostalgia.
Total nostalgia. And I was like, God, I want that in my hands right now. I wouldn't listen to it. I mean, I don't have a player, but I want it.
Well, that's the thing about a lot of this stuff, is that a lot of people do just want the item to hold in your hand or to sit on your shelf or to collect, or whatever. And I'm sure a lot of people that do end up buying them won't spend a lot of time listening to them. So it's one of those things. I know they're going to fly off the shelves just like all this other stuff, maybe even faster once it gets around. But I have started Radar Station Records. Now, I'm not really running this as a proper record label, but, I'll put out some Bloody Oranges stuff, some of our side projects, some spoken word stuff from some of the artists that come to the gallery. And eventually we hope to start recording some of the shows, the live shows there. And the Telephone Company, live from the Telephone Company, that will also be put out in Radar Station Records. So this is how these projects always come to be. One little idea turns into the next, and I'm having entirely too much fun making all these little cassettes and the covers and putting that shit out, because I haven't done that in years. But people still like to go to shows and buy something at the merch table. And, that if they don't have vinyl and they don't have a T-shirt you want, then that's going to be a CD or a cassette. And I got to say, I've had fun even playing the CDs down there, because I completely got out of CDs. I never really loved them, but I still have a pile of them, and there's a CD player there, and I'm playing some of the stuff that we sell there. So it's just kind of fun to get back into analog shit, and even the digital shit that sounds way better than what we are getting used to, which is streaming. And if you've been used to that only, I really recommend that you experiment with some of these other analog ways of listening to tunes, because we're really sacrificing a lot of quality for that convenience. But
I was going to say, with the old cassette tapes, a lot of them, I mean, I kept mine mainly because, they weren't cheap. Even back in the day, were like $15, buy a new tape.
15 to 20, yeah, absolutely.
A lot of the singles that came out, and mind you, it was at that time, they're really rare. I mean, there was, I used to have like 5 or 6 really rare Iron Maiden singles.
Yeah.
That you really can't even find here anymore, and I don't even know where they went anymore. Metallica had a few of them too.
Yeah. What was great about those was they always had a B-side that you couldn't get anywhere else. That's not special now that we have the internet, but back in the day, like if you wanted to hear Bread Fan, you had to have what was the A-side that had Bread Fan on it?
It was
Master of Puppets or
No. It was Bread. Oh God, what was it?
I want to say
one. Yeah, it was. It wasn't Garage Days Revisited, but it was a different one.
Yeah, it was
Creeping
one of the
Death?
singles. ago. Maybe it was, you know what? Might have been Creeping Death. I don't know. It was definitely from Lightning or Master of Puppets. But anyway, that shit, or later on, what was there's a B-side to another one that was the Queen, Stone Cold Crazy. All that shit ended up on compilations and now on YouTube. But it was fucking special back then, and that's how you had to get it. If you wanted to hear Maiden covering UFO, you had to get the right my favorite B-side of all time came from Iron Maiden, and it wasn't a song at all. And John Mark, you must know what the A-side of this was, but the B-side was, there was some miscommunication between Nico, the drummer, and Steve Harris, the bass player of Iron Maiden, on stage, and they were yelling at each other, and they couldn't quite communicate.
It was Bruce. It was Bruce and Steve. Yeah, it was something to do with some, like, I think he had taken some notes in his Walkman or something, and Steve had fucked with him somehow, and like they were, I don't know, they were. It was like they got in a big fight on the tour bus, and they were yelling at each other, and I think it was Nico who was recording.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, and he was
he was like getting a kick out of the fight, and it was a passionate, enraged fight back and forth. And it's like, but what I'm saying is, when I'm on stage and I can't fucking hear you, then don't fucking. And it just went on and on and on. That's the whole song, and then at the very end of it, you hear someone discover that it's being recorded. And he's like, "Oh, some cunt's recording this."
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard that. And I didn't know the story of it until I saw a documentary on Iron Maiden, maybe 2 decades later. But you could sort of piece it together, what was happening. It was like, I listened to that over and over and over again. But special times, magic happening on them tapes. So look forward to Radar Station Records presents Radar Station Cassettes. Not available on 8-track yet. Who knows?
Yet.
8-tracks are still the biggest piece of shits. Those are something that you only buy to collect, put on the shelves, because they never sounded good and they'll never sound great.
Well, they take up a lot of space.
Mm-hmm. That was an incredibly complex technology at 8-track, because it basically split up one piece of tape into 4 channels, which had a front and a backside. And so when you went to select the second track, which was a second program of 2 songs, hence the 8-track, it went clunk, and what that sound was your tape head sliding down just a notch, so it was now in the second part of the. It's crazy.
I was gonna say I didn't even know this for the longest time until like I was, I don't know, probably like 15 or something like that, when I was getting into playing guitar and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad had a bunch of older cars. I had a couple 66 GTOs, and we're in the back of one of them, doing something. I go, "What the hell is that?" And it was a box that sat in the back, and that car originally came with an 8-track.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the cars back then came with reverb, and there was a little box, and that's what made their sound system sound so good, is because they would tap in a little bit of reverb into the speakers.
A little spatial effect, as they say. Yeah. Spatial.
Make it blooming, yeah.
Well, one more little interesting tidbit, then we'll move on with the cassettes. Now, when you see bands putting out their own CDs, usually the going rate for a CD is $10. But the going rate for cassettes, now mine are going to be a little bit more because they're super small runs, but the going rate for cassettes at these same shows tend to be $5, because it's so much cheaper to make tapes, even with all that plastic and all those that metal and the reels and all the action happening inside that, and the paper and the plastic that goes around it. It's still way cheaper than CDs.
Wow, that's surprising.
Did you ever fucking think that? I wouldn't have thought that until I read that article.
Well, I mean, because you could buy stacks of DVRs or whatever that you could like record on, for like, I don't know, $10 for 100 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. If you get them online, even cheaper than that. But yeah, that's what I just got a stack for at Fred Meyer. So surprising times, magical times. It'd be interesting to see what happens with cassettes in the not too distant future. But I guarantee you, once you guys have these things in your hand, and if you get yourself near a cassette deck and you pop those puppies in, you'll see what I mean. It just, there's something to it. There's something to the whole experience.
I'm wondering is if that could bring back the 8 tracks.
I don't know. Well, see, the cassettes sound great, and the CDs sound okay, and the records sound great. All this depends on good equipment, of course. But almost everybody agrees that 8 tracks are just shit. But that doesn't mean that they won't come back somehow. Some people might get nostalgic about the clunking sound and the fact that you could hear the other song on the other side playing backwards louder than the forward one.
Not that. The 8 track, the recorders that used tapes had.
4 tracks. We could never afford 8 tracks back then. Yeah, the Tascam stuff. That's people have been recording with that shit all along. Mostly hipsters that have very specific wants and needs for sound, but.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll see some of that gaining steam again. Anywho, before we get on to my soup day shower, which probably won't be as long as that little trip down memory lane with cassettes, what do you guys got for news?
I found a kind of interesting story, how everybody thinks in the Bermuda Triangle, there's like some type of odd, whatever, you could imagine that there's, a pyramid underneath there sucking down planes and boats, or, what's the most common theory you guys really heard of?
For Bermuda Triangle?
Yeah, for going myth.
I feel like there was something... The thing that I was really interested in for a while was like the magnetic idea, that there is some sort of magnetic pole pulling all these metal things down, but that seems to be a pretty ridiculous one from what
heavy lines, they do go across there too. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's not a far-fetched thing.
Yeah.
There's a physicist, I guess, that is actually debunking one of the major stories. Is most people, I mean, scientists and stuff, they believe what it is methane gas, and there's these deep pockets of methane.
Oh, that's right.
That up the ocean floor, and as it bubbles,
sea farts, we call them.
Yeah, sea farts, like mermaid farts. So
mermaid farts henceforth.
Yeah, the bubbles elapse around the ship, and the ship would sink because of the air to water ratio, that it would just drop. Mm-hmm. She's definitely her name's Helen. She's an oceanographer too. She's debunking this pretty hard and saying that basically the small bubbles really wouldn't do anything. You'd have to have like a huge bubble.
Huge fart.
Take down like
I always imagined that it would be a giant sea fart from the stories I read. I guess I never really thought about what they were claiming those bubbles size-wise would be.
Typically, whatever, the size of a Volkswagen Bug. But, I mean, what she's talking about has to be, massive in a sense to even temperamentally take her down a boat. But the plane runs also on that same theory, is that the methane gas is escaped from the ocean and somehow stalls out the motors of the planes, which I kind of have a hard time believing. Just because 10,000 feet, there's a lot of big difference.
Yeah, it's tough to think that we could figure out all the things that we have, and with flight and modern sea travel, and that it would all be foiled by bubbles. But sometimes we're not as clever as we think, and it's hard to know. But you see, my thing with the bubble theory is, like I said, even a Volkswagen-sized bubble is a sizable bubble.
Sure.
And it seems like that would definitely be able to knock a smaller vessel down. Of course, how does that explain the plane stuff? But let's stick with the vessels for a while. But if you can imagine one that big, why couldn't, think of how huge the ocean is. Why couldn't we imagine a bubble that was at least half the size of a large ship, forcing up? And that would totally... And when it popped, who knows what force would come out of that motherfucker. It's just like, boosh. You could easily see how that could topple at least a medium-sized ship. But, I don't know. But ultimately, I think what, to me, convincingly and consistently seems to shoot down anything to do with the Bermuda Triangle is that if you are looking at the entire world at large, none of this is... the levels and the numbers of disappearances or planes or ships going down, it's not higher than anywhere else. Like, that's been pretty well proven to me. And I don't know, once I saw that, I thought, maybe there's nothing to it.
Yeah, I always thought that actually that would be a pretty sound scientific assessment of the Bermuda Triangle is something like that. But she's pretty intent on saying the bubbles would actually make the ship go up, not down.
Yeah. Yeah, but what goes up must come down. I wonder if it seems like if it would be just enough to topple it, that you get a bobble effect, and who knows? I mean, sometimes I've seen ships get knocked over from fairly small waves, it just has to put it just so far, and then what happens is when it rocks back, that next one snaps it back, and it's just that momentum gets going like a pendulum, and then all of a sudden it's upside down. But interesting stuff, the Bermuda Triangle. I love that people are still, actively looking into this thing, though, so much. And who knows, there could be something down there. What else we got?
Did I tell you about the story about the little girl who wanted to poop birthday party?
Oh, something
Please
kind
continue.
of familiar about that, but
I'm listening.
Do go on.
So there's a little girl. Let's see here. Let me find the story real quick. When her parents asked her what she wanted to do for her birthday, she said she wanted a poop birthday party, poop theme. So when her mother asked her daughter Audrey how she'd like to celebrate her third birthday, and she had only one theme in mind: poop. And so they kept trying to say, can we do something else, like unicorns or princess or whatever? She's like, nope, I want poop.
It's probably the same girl that walked past our fucking banner at Comic-Con.
I now know what my birthday party should be.
So they said, okay, let's just do it. Let's gonna go for it. And so they played pin the poop, where you had to get the little poop emojis into the toilet bowl.
Pin the poop.
And the piñata was a poop emoji shape, and it was filled with like Tootsie Rolls and Hershey's Kisses.
Fucking adore this girl.
And guests received whoopee cushions as party favors.
Sure.
Nice.
Oh man.
Oh, neighbor.
I want to see pictures of this party.
I will send you
I
a
want to
link.
play
You
pin
can see
the
them.
poop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sure.
You're a good boy this year.
I'm gonna be 42. Yeah.
Fuck.
So are we done?
Yep.
Awesome.
Poop.
That's
It's gone.
good.
Flush.
That is good stuff.
I got some fun Hollywood Gets Pro, but I thought we'd save that till after your
Yeah.
soup dish war.
Is that tied to your rant? You said you had something you wanted to get off your chest.
I do have a mini rant. I wanted to.
Let's go.
I've been saving it for a couple of weeks.
Don't hold it
You
in
know,
like a methane bubble over the Atlantic Ocean.
There truly needs to be a name for this segment, like the old man Ron rant or something. Like that's
Didn't
what
we
it
call
feels
him
like.
Rants at one point?
Ron.
Well, get off my lawn.
I like Rons a lot.
Get off my lawn has a certain appeal too.
Yeah.
Either way.
Get off Ron's lawn. Get off my Ron. How about that?
Get off
Combine
my
them all.
Ron.
Get off my Ron.
I like it. It's done. This week's Get Off My Ron is, what is it with all these? Have you guys noticed a large uptick in live animal births on Facebook?
Yeah.
And I'm
then you
not
got
just
the
talking
watch.
this April the giraffe bullshit that was like any day now for 6 months. It felt like Jesus
it
Christ,
went
that
on
thing
and
was
on and
on
on.
my. It would just that baby wouldn't come out. And I was getting tired of seeing it, frankly. But the one that really got me my panties in a twist was I just was scrolling through my Facebook feed the other day, and because I like a few different cat pages, this one populated. It was like, watch Meow Meow the rescue kitten give birth, and I'm like, ooh. And this fucking screen is this black shit just shooting out of the cat's ass, almost like the camera lens. I'm not kidding. I grabbed a couple of screens because I was kind of like, oh my God. And here they come. Yeah, I was just like, what the fuck? I can't believe this is in my Facebook feed. I've never seen a cat give birth. I got to be honest. I never had a cat that had done that.
They're pretty goopy. They are pretty goopy. I don't remember seeing one pop right. Well, I must have watched something pop out of a mama cat, but I've definitely seen them seconds after birth, and yeah, it's messy. Oh, I opened the wrong one. That's the poop birthday party. I'll watch those pictures later. Oh, yeah. So what did you think this was going to look like, Chris?
No, I didn't. It wasn't as if I was like, you know what I'm going to go looking for today is a fucking cat
Oh,
shoving
I
something at
gotcha.
it. But it just was there.
It's just there. You spit out your sandwich. Oh, look at the little mama. That's pretty adorable and horrifying.
Well, it might be a reason why most cats go underneath like hidden places to have kittens.
Like, I know
You
this
ain't
is
gonna wanna
goopy
see this.
meow.
You don't get your feet this, man.
You're gonna want to see this. Even I know this is sick.
I'm sorry, man.
Don't look at me. I'm a monster. That's sort of pregnancy in general. I have yet to see any footage of any birth of any species that is not a fucking shit show of blood and goop, For as beautiful as an experience as it is one of the worst looking things you could ever point your peepers toward.
Yeah. There's been so much of it lately, and I'm like, is this the new fad? Is this like the new thing? Am I gonna
Might be a strength thing. Who knows?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if there are an awful lot of people out there that agree with you, Chris, and this might end up being one of those things that are now being flagged, and eventually you'll see possibly disturbing footage of nature happening here. Because, watching a coyote devour a bunny is nature, but most of us don't want to see it, right? I don't. Yeah. When I'm scrolling through Facebook, it's just like, it seemed like for a while that kind of shit was happening all the time. Before I'd even know what I was watching, something horrible was happening. They got better at that. So maybe I bet this will be something that, I mean, if you think about it, it may seem kind of silly, like, oh, toughen up, Nancy boy. But it's blood, it's guts, it's goo. And you should be warned before you watch something coming out of a vagina. I think that's a fair point.
It's only fair.
Mm-hmm. Or going into it.
What got me was those zip popping videos.
I'll give you those all day long.
See stuff like that. And it's funny because it's not across the board. Chris can handle that shit. I don't like any of that stuff. I mean, sometimes I'm in the mood for it, but again, not if I'm eating pudding. Not when I'm eating my vanilla pudding.
Can be real. What the other thing is too, and I'm pretty sure it's been debunked as a Photoshop. But you ever see the thing where it looks like somebody's hand, and it looks like it's just got geometrical patterns in it, like a I want to say the face of a sunflower or something but it's like a fucking disease. You ever seen that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It's fucking creepy, dude. I physically can't look at that shit. It's just, and I could see anything, dude. I've watched people get fingers cut off,
for fun,
soft and shit. I've seen my bones a few times. I don't have a problem with that, but when it's that creepy shit like that, you got to know what I'm talking about. It's like a couple of them are like pictures of like I want to say they're geometrical, like little circles, and inside those circles are like worm heads or something like that. But they're like it's like some kind of
crop circles on your flesh, huh? That's what I'm picturing.
People like they'll have it on their leg or on their arm, and I think it's been debunked as like Photoshop.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think it's real, and I speculate. I don't know, man. A
lot of fake shit out there. I remember some horrible.
Well, do you know like what they have? Does it say what the disease is supposed to be called? Because if it has a scientific name, then you can Google that shit and you can find out if it's real or not. That's when I usually click it off.
It's crop circula, I think is what it's called.
There's a lot of weird fucking skin disorders out there that are pretty rare, that are pretty horrific as well. So who knows? I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, you never know. I would believe it either way. Well, let's get moving on to my soup du jour and then end on some news quiz and a wee bit of Hollywood Gets Prizzo. This is, as promised, the story of the torso killer, otherwise known as the Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Now, this goes back to 1935 in Cleveland, Ohio, and I want you to put yourselves in that time in that place and just imagine all this going down. We'll start with case file 1, John Doe 1. A male body that was never really identified was found dead in the Jackass Hill area of Kingsbury Run. Now I want you to enjoy that name, Jackass Hill of Kingsbury Run.
Can you remind me what year? I'm sorry, I missed
1935 is when the first one, case file 1. Now, his head had been sawed completely off, and they think it was probably while the victim was still alive. His genitals were also chopped off, and his skin had been treated with some sort of unidentifiable chemical that turned it brownish and gave it sort of a leathery texture, almost like a type of taxidermy agent had been applied to the corpse. And the man's head was found not too far from the body, but as I said, he was never identified. And this is a common trait in this story because Kingsbury Run was a rundown shanty town of shacks and temporary housing for migrants and poor people. And remember, this is the very height of the Great Depression. So many of these people were just kind of wandering from town to town with not so much as a comb in their pocket, let alone any form of identification. Case file number 2, and interestingly, this second murder case was actually the first body to be discovered in the timeline, but they could tell by the decomposition of him that he was actually 2 weeks before the first case, or 2 weeks after. So this was John Doe number 2, and he was found 10 feet away from where John Doe number 1 was found, 2 weeks apart. And this man was able to be identified as Edward Andrassy, and he was found the exact same way, headless, dickless, and leathery.
Fuck.
Which sounds like a Ministry album now that I say it out loud. Not my favorite piece of theirs. And once again, his head was found fairly nearby. Case file number 3, this is January and February of 1936. A woman who was later identified as Florence Polillo was found downtown Cleveland, and her head was completely sawed off, and her breasts had been mutilated and posed in, I couldn't get any details exactly how they were posed, but in some sort of suggestive manner, and they never recovered her head. Case file 4, June of 1936. A John Doe was found back up in Kingsbury Run, decapitated. His head was never discovered either, but this man's body showed clear signs that he was absolutely beheaded while alive. In fact,
That's what I was just going to ask you. Like, was that the cause of death for all these corpses? Like,
they listed this guy as his cause of death was beheading. Yeah. Now the first couple, they were unclear, but a handful of these, it was very clear. Just they can tell that by the scabbing, and of course that this was the cause of their death. Now, whether they were alert or not, no one knows. You want to hope that they were drugged at least, but holy shit. So yeah, there were no other injuries on this guy, so they listed it as the cause of death. Case file number 5. July 22nd of 1936, John Doe 2 was found west of Cleveland, and he had been mutilated and dismembered while he was still alive. So they basically pulled him apart before his heart had stopped beating.
Oh, Jesus.
And they did. Yeah, and they did find his head later. Case file number 6. September 10th, 1936, almost exactly a year after the first body was found, John Doe 4 was nothing but a torso left behind, and his head and limbs were never recovered.
My God.
Case file 7. Is this not insane?
Yeah, this person, I'm just trying to imagine, like, this body strength alone required to maybe pull some of this off. Like,
yeah, literally. And we are barely halfway, though. Now, I'll sum up some of these just in the interest of time. Case number 7, Jane Doe 1 was found on February 23rd on the shores of Lake Erie, completely headless and completely naked. Case number 8, Jane Doe number 2, the only black victim, was found headless and ribless under a downtown bridge. Case number 9, July 6th, John Doe number 5 was pulled out of a river with his head gone. And a year later, case number 10, actually, a leg and a piece of severed thigh was pulled out of that same river. Later on down the road, they found the torso of Jane Doe number 3 and former owner of said leg and thigh in that river. She was sliced in half, and the other limbs were all stuffed into a burlap sack and left under a bridge near the river.
Jesus.
And this motherfucker was on a mission here. Now, there were 2 more confirmed cases, and it followed one of the heads being found stuffed into a coffee can and then just left nearby the body to be found. So naturally, by now, the city of Cleveland is like, what the fuck is happening, and why can't these Keystone cops find out who's doing this? I mean, think about that happening over a couple of years in your hometown, and it just keeps going on, and nobody knows why, no one knows who's doing it, and you're just like, oh yeah, there's another one. That would be insane. Now, interestingly, the mayor of Cleveland at this time was none other than Elliot Ness, the very man that helped bring down the Untouchables, including Al Capone himself just a few years prior. And as you may imagine, he was under a lot of pressure to get someone in jail for these brutal crimes, and this has led to a lot of speculation as to the validity of the prime suspect that they come up with. And that was a man by the name of Frank Dolezal, a 52-year-old Cleveland man. He was booked into jail and eventually confessed to killing Florence Polillo, case file number 3, but he later recanted the confession, saying he was beaten and forced to confess by the cops.
Holy shit.
And a couple of days after that, he was found hanged to death in his cell.
Oh, man.
An autopsy showed that he had almost every rib in his body had been broken, a couple of them to the point of being almost powderized. He had lacerations all over his body, and he didn't have any of those injuries when he was booked into jail. There's also talk about the specifics of the hanging itself, because the guy who was Dolezal was 5'8", and he was hanging from a noose that was 5.5 feet off of the ground. Now, I have to say this doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, because my friend Jason hung himself in a way that he could have simply stood up to back out. So I know, personal experience that that doesn't necessarily mean that he couldn't have killed himself. But everything else, literally everything else, clearly raises some flags, and he was never tied to any of the murders with any evidence or any public accusations. It was a pretty clear case of the coppers wanting to wrap it up in time for re-election for good old Ness, the mayor, and this poor bastard had to die for it. There was a second suspect, and this one is really interesting. Dr. Francis Sweeney, a veteran of World War I, who was assigned in a medical unit that conducted amputations and patching up huge wounds out in the field. He apparently failed all of his polygraphs when he was grilled on the murders. However, Elliot Ness was in a tricky spot with Frank Sweeney, because he was a cousin of Congressman Martin Sweeney, who was a political opponent of Ness and someone who had been very publicly negative toward Ness and his inability to solve these cases. So Ness told his colleagues that it would be career suicide to go after Sweeney, as the public would just assume, well, this is political retribution for somebody being vocally against him. So they let him go. But Dr. Sweeney later started having interesting mental issues, especially connected to paranoia. And he actually had himself committed to a psych ward where he spent the rest of his life. And all the way up to his last years, he would send Elliot Ness very cryptic postcards, just mocking him. Now, he never admitted to any of the crimes, but he would just constantly torment Ness. And this is the man that most experts think likely did the killings, but there was another man that was caught leaving the torso of a 19-year-old girl on Kingsbury Run in the 1940s, and that was a guy named Willie Johnson. 2 dick names back to back. How about that? Now, he was executed in 1944 for that specific murder, but he denied the whole time that he killed the others. There was zero evidence tying him to any of the other murders. On another interesting note, that this whole thing was slowly making Elliot Ness crazy, and he started completely abusing his authority. He had the shanty towns burnt down, and anyone that looked like a vagrant was arrested and interrogated. No warrants, no rights. They would just throw him in jail and try to force, or, by many reports, beat a confession out of these people.
Fuck.
He was losing his shit, and the whole case really left a black eye on his otherwise rather heroic reputation. I mean, he brought down the fucking mob, the original mob, that we all think about in the classic days, Shay. Some researchers actually claim that this is more proof that Sweeney was tied to it, because that this was his whole ingenious plan, was to bring down Ness, to publicly humiliate him and tarnish his reputation and end his career. Also intriguing is the case of Emil Fronek. He was a vagrant that later claimed, or actually I think it was in the late 30s, he claimed that a doctor had tried to drug him, but he got away. And when describing the location of the office, it was in the direct vicinity of Dr. Sweeney's downtown office location. And it's
this guy
important to note that the idea of Sweeney's involvement was not made public until decades later, after all these people were dead. So he couldn't have possibly known that Sweeney was even a suspect, because that never got released. Remember, if Ness had released it, he would have had to pursue it. And he didn't want to do that because of career suicide. With all of that said, the case is still listed on the books as unsolved, and likely will stay that way. There's too much wackiness here, with the lack of evidence, the lack of identity. 80% of solving a murder is linking the relationship between the deceased and whoever killed them, or whoever, you find out that relationship, you find motive, that's how you start an investigation. But if you have no idea who the victim even is, you kind of got nothing. And the overwhelming majority of these cases were unidentified victims. Plus, you have the political motivations. It's just way too murky to call. And while there are 12 confirmed murders attributed to the work of the Torso Killer, most experts now believe that it's closer to 30, and many think the real first victim may have been a woman found naked and headless on the shore of Lake Erie. Victim 0, or the Lady of the Lake, as she is referred. She was found in the exact same spot as Jane Doe 1 from Case File 7, but that was, in the late 20s. So well before everything got going in the mid-30s. So that could have been the very first one, and some of them that happened along the way might not have been found. Or, a lot of times when somebody becomes a serial killer, that first kill tides them over for quite a while. And then the next one tides them over for a less amount of time, and then they need to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. That's how the obsession and the compulsion works. And so that's why they always ramp it up. So, in the murders, there were murders that looked like this going all the way up to the 50s that fit the location and the style of the killings of the Torso Killer. So, some people think that it wasn't Sweeney, that it wasn't Willie Johnson, that it wasn't any of these guys, that it was some dude that kept it going for a while. Other people think that it was several people, much like with a lot of the theories with Jack the Ripper, that there couldn't have been, or that there could easily have been a couple of people either working together or copycats. But a lot of people shoot that down because there are very specific and traceable patterns in how, it seems pretty rudimentary and like a one-way thing to just cut an arm off. But everybody does it differently. It's fascinating. You can cut it above the shoulder, below the shoulder. You can use a specific type of knife, a specific type of cut. And these all seemed pretty clear that it was the same person. And that's really intriguing when you consider that they may have been going for 30 years, and including, 10 plus years after the two prime suspects are dead.
Yeah, it's creepy.
So there it is, the unsolved and fucking crazy little tale of the Butcher of Kingsbury Run, folks, also known as the Torso Killer. Now, interestingly, there is a Torso Killer of New York, a different tale, and I will tell that in the not-too-distant future. But I think that's enough ghastliness for now.
That's a great one. I've never heard of the Torso Killer before.
I probably wouldn't have either if not for Art Chantry's quick little post on Facebook today.
I don't know if it's enough ghastliness, because I was going to ask you, I've been seeing pop up here and there lately, people talking about the mystery feet washing up on shores too. Did we ever really get that resolved, or was it still kind of a mystery when we talked about it?
I think we went down, didn't we?
We did a couple of episodes on. I don't know that we ever. I don't know that there is one going theory on that, but I think we all. I thought we all came away from it thinking that it was a big part of it might have been tsunami victims.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the reason it's feet specifically is because the ankles, they're a thin, easily disconnected piece of our body, and the feet dislodge, and the rubber and the shoes.
The shoes float.
Yeah, make them float. It's as simple as that. But the shoe thing alone means that basically any body that's out there in the ocean will someday eventually have floating feet coming off of it. I mean, it's crazy to think.
And see, this is the thing too, is that I don't recall having reading that they did any sort of DNA tests or anything to go, oh yes, this is definitely a person of this sort of descent, and they probably from this did. Yeah. Was there anything like that? Because that seems like that's something that they would do, right?
It's been a while since we have done that episode, but it does seem like they could get DNA off it to tell.
You think
the nationality, this person was from Japan, so likely, and the shoe was from 2000 and whenever. This likely was a victim of the tsunami. I don't know. I feel like we have touched on that part of it, but again, I don't recall any specifics. It's been so long since we've done those shows, but it seems like once we did that initial show, every couple of months there was a new foot washing ashore. And that does seem, I don't know, you're saying you're seeing more stories about that. I feel like I was seeing a drop off of them, but are there more washing ashore, or are the stories just recirculating?
I'm not sure. It seemed like it was a newer article, just popped up in the last like week or so. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It might be worth reinvestigating or something. I'm not sure.
Indeed, that is a fascinating and ghastly story all in of itself. Just fucking feet out there floating. Of all the millions of people that have been discarded after a murder in the ocean, you got to think that a lot of those people weren't smart enough to take the shoes off, because almost everything else would probably get, nibbled by one critter or another down there, and it will sink. But, if they did it properly, I guess the idea is to weight it down so it doesn't float at all. But those shoes are going to pop off eventually, and they are going to float from shore to shore. And what a fascinating and weird message in the bottle type story that is, where you just have a foot floating across from one continent to the next. I'm fascinated with one of my favorite things about walking along the beach, of the actual coast, is seeing the random shit that just washes ashore. And you can see, stuff from Japan and from all over the place. It's fascinating how long that shit can stay out there and how long it will travel before, it's not like someone's going to scoop it up to pick up garbage if they see it when they're in a boat, and animals might try to eat some of it and spit it out. Most of it's just trash, it's like plastic shit floating around. It'll be out there forever until it just washes ashore. Tons and tons and tons of it. Remember, years ago, we did a quick little story about how much pollution. Maybe it was the feet episode. It seems like a good way to make a point of how this shit can carry. But there was a picture of one of our coasts, and I think it was Washington, maybe closer to Canada. And it was just like they showed how much junk washes ashore like every month, and they had it all out on display. You remember that? It took up an entire gymnasium, and it was 1 month of shit that washed ashore in this one little section of beach. Think about that all over the world. We litter the planet every which way, but it's something interesting about it being out bobbing around in the ocean, and our 6-pack rings strangling little turtlenecks, and whales getting fucking styrofoam cups shoved into their blowholes. And these stories come up all the time, and it's just like, God, can't we just not? Can we just not? We can't. The answer is we can't not. Go ahead, Lau. What's that?
Compared to the 80s, I think we're doing a lot better with recycling and stuff like that. I think the recycling plants are actually a little more modified to accept garbages like that and recycle them. Mm-hmm. Versus like the 80s when all we had was styrofoam shit. Remember that? Like McDonald's, you get a styrofoam.
Everything was styrofoam. Yeah, in the 80s, we were snorting Coke off of styrofoam cups and tossing it into the ocean. Mm-hmm. Like proud Americans.
Make me did cry.
Have a Coke and smile. Yeah.
If 5 people that know that.
Well, what frustrates me about recycling is the inconsistency, because if every place you went had a recycling bin, and I don't know if I want legislation to get involved. I'm not a big fan of legislation. I feel like there's enough rules, but I'm a huge fan of public shaming. If we can mock publicly the people that aren't being good stewards of the earth to some degree, and we all could be better. But, there are places that you go that have recycling, and then if you go there looking for recycle, they don't have recycling. And then there's towns that have a recycling program, and then there's towns that don't. So even now in 2017, we're not all on the same page, and that inconsistency is frustrating and hard to get into a rhythm. I think we would all do much better than we could be doing right now if there was.
I still don't know what you can and can't put in the recycle bin.
Well, it's not because it's not all the same.
By that shit.
Some places it all goes into one bin, whether it's glass, plastic, or aluminum. It all goes in the same bin. Other places there are specific color-coded bins. But here's the fun thing about where I live is that there are reports after reports, and I've seen this with my own eyes. People, when the waste management comes up and picks up the shit, and you've got your 3 little color coordinated boxes out there, and you've been a good human being and done your recycling, and you watch the truck come by and throw all of it into the same bin, and you're like, wow, that's a neat trick.
I was just gonna say, I think we've had this conversation before.
Yeah, I've been a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of the newer facilities, I think what they do is they take the huge pile, right, and then they sift through it, and the machines do it, so they'll like have something magnetic that'll take all the metal shit out of it, and they'll process through it.
Well, if that's true, then why the separate bins to begin with? Then why do we have to recycle shit anyway? If it all
because
separate?
Fuck you, that's why.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if I buy that. I don't think I buy most of what they're telling us they're doing. I think they're just charging us extra and then patting themselves on the back for looking like they're being responsible, and then it all goes in the fucking earth.
That wouldn't surprise me at all if that was happening in certain places. What I want to know, do you guys have composting over there too, or is it still just recycling? Because over here in Seattle, at least where I work, we have like a compost bin as well. So we've got the garbage, we got landfill, we got recycle, we have compost.
And we might. I'm not aware of that. I know most people just dump their lawn clippings into the garbage now.
Yeah. So but where I work, we have a definite like compost bin. So if all your food scraps and paper that can compost goes in there.
Sure.
But now companies are making things that. So sometimes I don't know if it's recyclable or compostable, because there's some companies make things that look like clear plastic. Where you're like, usually like, oh, I would just recycle this. Mm-hmm. But now they make it out of different stuff so you can actually compost it. It's like, am I throwing plastic in the compost bin, or am I throwing compost in the recycle bin? I don't know what the hell's happening anymore.
This is starting to turn into a Louis C.K. bit. That's what's frustrating though, is you try to do good. And then ultimately you just sort of get frustrated and you go away and you just honestly, like, fuck it, all in the same bin. Fuck it.
Sometimes that's what I do. I just say, fuck it, and just throw it all in the landfill. Cause
how much of your life can you really donate to this? And then if you don't really have faith that shit is actually happening, once it gets picked up at the curb too, that's a whole other problem. So yeah, there are, I think Lyle's right. I mean, I feel like we're absolutely doing better, but I also think that there's a whole lot of inconsistency, and there's definitely a lot of flat out bullshit happening in the recycling industry. And, who knows how much they're allowed to fudge those numbers when they say, though, this thing is made from 80% recycled parts. Is that like diet stuff where they can be up to 10, in some cases 10 to 15% wrong, or is it more? Who's challenging them on this? And what we learned from even the FDA is when people do independent studies and they throw food into one of these testing facilities, they find out, oh yeah, this label says that it's got 20 grams of protein, turns out it has 4, and it says it's got 17 grams of sugar, turns out it's got 60. They lie all the time until it's one of these things where you go until somebody catches you, and you're like, now we got to do it.
That's
right.
happening. It's just people, and you know how we are. You know how shit works.
Yeah.
You know that shit's not like 100%.
But you don't want that to stop you from, trying. So it's frustrating. I guess you just kind of have to take it and, have faith that it's going through. It's being paid forward to the next level, whether that's the dump or the government or the factories, wherever it's going, wherever it's coming from. You just have to sort of do your part and hope for the best.
You gotta have a glass half full sort of outlook, I think. Otherwise, you're just gonna fucking drive yourself to suicide.
And we wouldn't do anything. We would just use that as an excuse to keep throwing styrofoam in the ocean. It's like, fuck it.
We're gonna, I don't know. We're gonna compost you when you kill yourself, or we're gonna. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's a tricky world with lots of tricks. Chris, how about we do some news quiz and end on a little bit of Hollywood Gets Probed?
Sounds like a fucking great plan, Ron.
Now, I have heard once again very disappointing numbers from our audience at large. Are you finding that across the board?
Yes, the average score was 1.62 points per game. Correct. This one stumped a few, but we did have one gem that shined through. She shined bright like a diamond.
Oh.
That's Rifa B. Limbs with a perfect score tonight of 4 points.
Oh, shit. Well, we might be able to, boy. See, it's tough to go with not that we ever remembered to do it anyway, but it's tough to ask the audience when they're bombing.
But, there was a few of these that they completely bombed, and there was at least one that they got pretty well right. So you never know.
Oh, yeah.
It still help.
That does throw a curve. Okay.
Okay. Let's start this up here. Tonight, this is the order in which you'll play. Ron, you took first place last week. Lyle, you took second. And John Mark, you took third. So it'll be Ron, Lyle, then John Mark. Boom.
Right.
Same as me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Question 1. Scientists from Harvard have recently concluded in a study that doing this can be very healthy for you. It's kind of a bad habit, but in fact, it can help prevent cavities, ulcers, and possibly even fight off HIV. What are we talking about? Doing this kind of a bad habit, maybe not. I don't know. What is it? Is it A, not washing your hands frequently?
Yeah. Well, there's the Ron herring.
Is it B, biting your fingernails?
Ward off AIDS. Okay.
Is it C, eating your own boogers?
Yeah.
Yes. Ooh, that's tough.
Yeah, good lineup.
Tough lineup indeed. Boy, I was a solid A.
Scientists at Harvard.
Yeah, I love the idea of Harvard looking into booger eating. So who we got working on that booger eating program? We're fucking Harvard, for Christ's sake. Let's get this shit wrapped up. We need to know what we're dealing with here. Wow. I was a solid A until the booger came onto the menu, and I feel like that might be the mother of all green herrings, but I'm going to go with booger eating.
Oh, God. I swear to God, anybody that has not ever seen Eddie Murphy Raw, do yourself a favor. It's a little outdated, but it's still freaking hilarious.
A lot of it holds up.
And there's a booger eating part in there that I just, as soon as he said that, boom.
A booger eating part. You guys watch that Eddie Murphy Raw? Oh, man, I love me that booger eating part.
It's the best. I got to go with biting your fingernails, dude.
All right.
Yeah, great answers though.
So this is supposed to help you somehow. I missed the first part of the question.
Best.
Yeah, something that would normally be thought of a bad hab. It turns out it might actually be a good hab.
Have some benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with the booger eating.
Well, I'm trying to quickly think of the science behind this. I guess it'll be easier to talk about that once we know. But yeah.
Okay, question 2. A 33-year-old with a pentagram tattooed into his forehead was put to death in prison not too long ago, just a couple weeks ago. For his last meal, he asked for and ate this.
Is it A, a booger?
Is it A raw fish head?
Oh, boy, I love the idea of ordering something all kinds of fucked up for your last meal.
Well, you got to eat it, though.
Yeah, the ultimate joke on you, but...
Is it B, his own blood thickened with gelatin?
Okay, yeah.
Or was it C, an entire Bible, cover and all?
Oh, yeah, the pentagram. I forgot about that part. Cover to cover Bible. Well, that would be the most filling.
Get you fiber.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's interesting about the whole last meal thing is a lot of people think, like, if you request a deep dish lasagna from your favorite restaurant, that they're just going to send for somebody. They don't. They have a kitchen, and you have basically a choice between their kitchen's version of pizza. It's not like they'll run out and get you Taco Bell. Like, the last meal thing is typically just, what do you want? Salisbury steak or fucking chicken? So I think we all have that misconception in our brains, but gelatin blood, I gotta think that somebody with a pentagram on their head is looking to impress. I mean, right? You either get a Bentley or a pentagram on your head. No in betweensy. Although the Bible thing, that's just ridiculous. I'm going for his own blood gelatinized. You got it. Boom. Okay, Lyle.
You would think if he was really hungry, you'd like eat at the neck Comic-Con or something like that, right?
The neck. Yeah, what is it? Now you got me. The Necronomicon.
Satan's Bible, not the Bible.
Well, the Satanic Bible is kind of a joke, but
Yeah, well, I was just.
Well, he wouldn't want to eat that. That'd be blasphemy. But you're right. At the same time, you're kind of right. You wouldn't. I mean, why would you want? I can see pissing on it or shitting on it, but why would you want to, accept it into your pie hole?
Accept
Jesus into your pie hole.
You know what? I'm gonna do something strange that I haven't done in a long time, and I'm gonna zip.
I'm gonna masturbate while I answer this next one.
I got my plan out there. I wanna see what everybody else.
Good question.
50% of the crowd went with B. His own blood thickened with gelatin.
Normally that would make me feel better, but knowing that ratio, I don't know.
I'm going with the fish head.
Fish head is.
Yeah.
John Mark.
I'm going to go with the Bible.
At least the fish head is food. Oh, they're going with the Bible. Family game.
I like it.
No,
I like it.
Playing the field.
Okay, guess what, guys? I hope you got your Florida Daily Dubs whistles ready because it's a Florida Daily Dub.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, I'm a little dry. Lubricate my squeaker, if you know.
This is going to be worth 2 points. A senior at a Florida high school has been suspended after it was recently discovered that he'd put a Craigslist ad up selling this for $470. Is it A, his homemade crystal meth collection?
Breaking Bad.
Surely it's worth more than that.
They didn't say it was very good shit. Is it B, his virginity?
Virginity.
Oh, yeah. We've had similar stories. Yeah.
Or is it C, 2 of his black classmates labeled as slaves?
Oh, I hope you made that up. I always hope you made up the racist ones.
Yeah.
In my heart of hearts.
I always enjoy making them up, too.
Yes, you do. So good at them. So natural. Huh.
So natch.
Well, C definitely seems like the barn burner story of the year versus some other ones that I'm trying to think. I feel like we had talked about a story where a girl had put up her virginity on Craigslist. I'm trying to think. Oh, I guess that, well, obviously that would be illegal. That's prostitution. Mm-hmm. And what was the other? The first one was...
his homemade crystal meth collection.
Yeah. All of these seemingly illegal. I am going to go with... Oh, God. Tough. I'm going to go with C.
2 of his black classmates labeled as slaves.
Yeah, I think that's the black herring. God forgive me. But
shit.
And I think you came up with that. So God forgive you.
I'm gonna go. It's Florida, and
ding 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 ding.
I'm gonna go with the meth.
The meth.
This is little homemade meth.
Oh yeah, that is very Florida-y.
Do we have any more type of lifelines that we can use?
Yeah,
or did we
call
Limitless.
I think Limitless. I'll tell you. Well,
at one point we were going to do if you. What we had.
I don't think I've ever called one in before.
The point.
Yeah. We've got to finesse this somehow. I'm open to ideas.
To make it funner.
I'm open to ideas. Make it more fun. I'm going to give you the lifeline on this. A whopping 62% of the listeners at home went with B, his virginity.
I think what we came up with is if you were wrong and you went with the lifeline, you lost 2 points, not just 1, which in this case would be 3 points.
Oh.
I like the sound of that.
Scary though. Would we ever choose one if we had such a strict? We barely choose them now. Maybe that's less of an incentive.
Yeah. Well, John Mark, what's it going to be?
Well, I think it's going to be B.
You're going with his virginity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has never happened before on the show, guys, but we actually have a second Florida Daily Dubs. This makes this a full Florida Daily Trips.
Shit.
Ding, 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 ding.
This one is going to be worth 3 points.
Who did what? 3 points. Holy shit. Now, do you do this with our listeners? Does this count as or is everything 1 point for them?
There's no way for me to make it weighted.
Gotcha. Okay, good. That's good to know.
Yeah. Okay. Question for a woman in Florida was busted for prostitution after she negotiated with an undercover cop to perform a sex act on him. Now, the negotiation part, basically, she agreed to the price for the sex act, which was $25. But then the officer had to also do this in order for her to agree. So it was the negotiation. So what was the additional act the officer had to do? Was it A, give her a ride to Walmart?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that sounds like Florida.
Yeah.
Was it B, to text her pimp to let him know she was doing work?
Good stuff.
Or was it C, to buy her some chicken McNuggets?
Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah.
Gotta have the nugs.
Can you imagine having some nugs delivered by a copper?
Mm-hmm. Ronster.
I was in a situation once where my buddy,
Oh my God.
where my buddy got pulled over and almost got a DUI. Like I think the cop just didn't want to deal with the hassle of a breathalyzer or doing the whole field sobriety test. So he was like, "I can tell you've been drinking. You're driving like shit. Park your car, find a ride home, walk home, do whatever you want, but you're not driving." To which I responded like, "Could you drop us off somewhere?" And my friend, who just barely escaped a DUI, looked at me and was like, "I will fucking murder you." Shut the fuck up. And the cop gave me a similar look. I was like, "Oh, I'm kidding. Hey." I wasn't kidding at all. I didn't want to fucking walk. We were like 3 miles away from anything. But so I got to go with the ride. I think that it might be an honest thought. Like, "Hey, where you heading? Can you get us halfway there?" Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this is a tough one, man. I want to stand on that key and shoot that 3-point shot.
Ron, I'm sorry. What did you go with?
We went with
I believe it was a ride to Walmart.
Wally World. Okay. Wally World and Wally World.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow.
I want to hit that 3-point shot, and I'm pretty sure it's got to land with the Walmart, man.
I land at the Walmart. Okay. John Mark.
I'm gonna go with the chicken McNugs.
The big dude.
Right, I love it. All right, let's go over the answers and see how you gentlemen did today. Question 1, scientists from Harvard have recently concluded in a study that doing this bad habit can be very good for you. In fact, it can help prevent cavities, ulcers, and possibly even fight off HIV. We were talking about eating your own boogers.
Holy shit.
I know.
Absolutely, son. Yes.
Ron and John Mark got that correct.
As soon as you were reading it. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I guess there's some really condensed good bacteria in them. And
you have to figure.
Yeah,
I guess the nose is filled with bacteria.
I guess it's almost as good as medicine, they say. They compared it to some medicine. It was like, whoa.
Man, we're sitting on a veritable gold mine.
I am mining for gold. Thank you very much.
Gold nuggets up there.
You imagine somebody like, "You feeling a little sick here? Try one of these."
Yeah, hold on, accept.
As a matter of fact, sir, I am mining for gold. Yes, that's
There's
what
got to be some way to process that shit in some capsules or something you can just swallow with a
Why is that grosser
water?
to me? I guess because that means you're eating someone else's bugs.
Well, why does that?
But just make your own product, son. Keep it natural.
How can a booger fucking cure your cavities?
Well, like you said, bacteria. I don't think it's necessarily
like
some
like
texture. At the risk of making myself retch, there are certain textural elements that one might. They do say that chewing sugarless gum, although that was probably a crock of shit to get you to buy sugarless gum, but they did say that chewing sugarless gum after a meal could prevent cavities. Maybe chewing.
You know what they used to also say, that drinking a soda before you ate would be good for your diet because you would want to eat less.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers.
They used to say a lot of things. What's crazy now though is that they are still saying things. It's still a they saying things, and we choose to either believe it or not. It's just a different thing. And do we believe that?
Yeah,
some things we have evidence.
It'll keep cavities down if you put fluoride in the water.
Mm-hmm. Or Florida.
Or Florida in the water.
Florida in the water.
Yeah.
Let's put in the water.
Or boogers. Just put boogers in the water. Booger water. I saw booger water open for Ween. See, Ween's my bet. The trick is, Chris, you always have to have one in your back pocket. It's better to repeat the same band over and over again than to not have something to grab for.
Yeah.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Question 2.
My goofy, the longest, stupidest names always go to either opening for Frank Zappa or some ska band from the 90s.
Yeah, Nickelback.
The infamous ska band Nickelback. Can you imagine Nickelback as a ska band? Like everything is the same except they break down. Look at this. Look at this photograph.
Oh my God, I hear it.
I can hear it too. Might improve that, man.
Okay. Question 2. A 33-year-old with a pentagram tattooed into his forehead was put to death in prison recently for his last meal. He asked for and ate an entire Bible cover to cover in 2 hours and 40 minutes. He ate them. He ate pieces of the pages like potato chips, is what the guy watching him said. So,
was there a background story to it or anything? Was he like trying to like find God or?
I think the pentagram in the forehead says it all, my friend.
Yeah,
I think
the
he was just trying
pentagram
to
on the
be
forehead
an
should have
asshole.
told you the backstory. Yeah, yeah, but the funny thing is, I still keep going back to it's incorrect. I kind of agree with Lau. I think that is the wrong move. If you're trying to prove your Satanism, you are dying with the word of God in your person,
In your belly.
like of all the things to do, just take a shit in front of the warden and wipe your ass with the Bible if you want to be all Satan-y, Satan boy. But to eat the
Satan
Bible,
boy.
you have taken that word of God into your person. Mm-hmm.
Except.
Yeah, you've
Accept
accepted.
Jesus.
You've accepted Jesus, motherfucker. Joke's on you. You're in heaven now, bitch. Like the ultimate slap in the face.
Right.
John Mark got that correct for a point, so we're looking at John Mark with 2, Ron with 1. But it's anybody's game because we had some Florida
Absolutely.
shit.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the first Florida Daily Dubs, question 3. A senior at a Florida high school has been suspended after it was recently discovered that he put a Craigslist ad up selling his 2 black classmates, which he had labeled as slaves,
Oh, fuck
for
yeah.
a tidy sum of $470. Ronster, you got that correct for 2 points.
Motherfucking sweet.
Slingshotting you to the lead.
Oh, God bless you, Florida. This next one could end it, though. It could throw me all off my crown.
Indeed-a-roo. Question 4. A woman in Florida was busted for prostitution after she negotiated with an undercover cop to perform a sex act on him. The agreed price for the sex act was $25, and the officer had to also do this. It was buy her some chicken McNuggets. John Mark went with his gut, and his gut was right.
Yes.
Hold
3
ahead.
points. He's 5. You are 3. John Mark with the win.
Nice.
job.
Nice. It was a good round. Good, exciting round.
Mm-hmm.
Neck and neck.
Neck and neck.
Good
I
stuff.
got a little Hollywood Gets Pro, but I want to blast at you real fast.
Let's dive into it.
Did you guys know there's a Highlander reboot on the way?
Again?
This one, I think, may pique your interest because it's coming from a co-director of the John Wick series,
Ooh.
and he claims it's going to be fucking John Wick with swords. And
Okay.
I
I have to admit, I haven't seen John Wick.
What?
No, I didn't want to see the puppy die. Spoilers.
Yeah.
It's
I know what
very-
happens early.
It's it's a very quick thing. You
I
don't
know.
really see too much. It's
Yeah.
Worth watching. The second one's great too.
Is it?
Yeah, I haven't
I
seen the
haven't
second
heard a lot about it, I have to say, except for the fucking puppy. We're so stupid. We can watch hundreds of people die, even sad, tragic deaths in movie, and we'll be like, oh, it was so beautiful and touching. But one fucking animal dies, and it's like, nope, never again. Nope.
it's one of the best action movies in the last fucking
10 years.
30 years.
I'll have to check it out. Do you know if it's on Netflix? I need a good movie.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure though.
I'll look.
Well, it depends. You got the CDs or just the stream?
Just a stream, yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many services now. I don't know what the fuck's on where
Yeah,
anymore.
it takes you now. I'm sure there is some blog or some website that you can follow that wrangles everything up, and you can just do one search. Like, who is streaming this? There's got to be somebody doing that, right? Because they're.
Yeah, you'd think so, huh?
Yeah, I'll have to
I
look
was
into
looking
that.
for a couple obscure movies, and I had to actually go through each individual's database.
Studio.
So,
Yeah, it might be just too much. There might just be too much fucking information out there now.
It'd be a hard thing to keep up on if you were running that website. So maybe it doesn't exist. But Lau's right. More and more of these, like the Warner Archives and all the studios are starting to where you can basically order everything in their library, but it's either a monthly service or price or item by item pricing.
Well, I mean, if you can't find John Wick anywhere except for like rental on iTunes or something, it's worth the $3-4 or whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
That's like an hour and a half of handcrafting shit to sell to Ron at this day and age, though. He's gonna rebel.
Yeah,
True.
I can't watch anything right now that I have to actually look at, but I am currently going through Twin Peaks again, and Holly just started for the first time. She'd never seen it, so you need to get on the Twin Peaks train, Chris, because you only got a couple weeks for that.
Fuck me.
You can easily do it in a few days, though.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I'll fucking through it. Okay, check this out. Zach Galligan, who's famously played Billy Peltzer in the Gremlins movies, has confirmed that the Chris Columbus is aggressively working on another movie starring him. He's been working on it for a bit now, so he's all but confirming that we're going to get a third Gremlins.
It's got to be a Gremlins 3. Like
There's going to be a Gremlins 3, and it's going to feature this Zach Galligan.
Same dude.
Warner Brothers is going to be behind it, apparently. So it's in the works. We may get it.
That's one of those uber late nostalgia sequels that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it could be.
Because I'm sitting here looking at a VHS that I bought. Speaking of tapes, I bought 5 days ago because I do have my VCR hooked up to an old black and white TV from the 80s. And I've been watching a ton of VHS, and I picked up Gremlins 2, and that's not one that I had seen too many times. I saw the original countless times, but handful of times for 2. But they're great. They're just fun, silly movies, and even the cheesier parts are just fun. It's like they were fairly self-aware at the time, and had a lot of fun with that movie, and I think that's why they hold up so well, even though they're dead set in the 80s. You can put those in now and play it for younger people, and they still get it. It's just still a fun movie. So I bet they could do a lot of fun with Gremlins 3. That's fun.
Yeah, I think so too. I look forward to seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of curious if they're not too late. I remember, when they did the reboot for the Karate Kid. I mean, it seemed like right around there would have been a good time for.
That would have been.
Yeah, but it was just bad.
It was a reboot too, and
this is a straight up sequel. Same people.
And Jackie Chan doesn't do karate; he does kung fu. So there was all kinds of shit with that setup that was a little odd. But now imagine though, if it wasn't. Will what's his fucking
Jaden Smith.
Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan, but it was Ralph Macchio, and he's training somebody new. He's in the Miyagi spot, and maybe it's his kid or something. But that then it would have been a sequel. We feel better. I think for the most part, we feel better about sequels 20 or 30 years later than we do about reboots, right? Do y'all feel the same way with me?
I think so.
We're at least more excited to see them, and it's a little less eye-rolling because it's like, okay, same people, same stories continuing. Fuck yeah, let's check it out. Because I think that actually takes more talent and skill than to just fire up the same. 9 times out of 10, all they're really rebooting is the fucking name. And sometimes it's great, like with 21 Jump Street. Those movies are fucking hilarious. They're great.
The Chips
but do
one
they
is supposed to be pretty funny.
Do they have anything to do with the originals? Almost nothing. So a lot of times it is, and that's frustrating. It's like just make your own funny thing. Or your own exciting thing, but because I think a lot of times having that reboot name hurts them more than. I don't know if it's true that especially in this day and age, that it actually helps them. I don't think. Yeah. I think we've caught wise to the whole reboot game.
Sure,
I'm still waiting for a Buckaroo Banzai sequel.
Oh boy, that would be an interesting one.
Kevin Smith was supposed to take that on, isn't he? Didn't he announce he was going to do that?
I don't know.
Is he?
I'm almost positive he had made the announcement. He's working on that right now.
Well, one reboot that I'm sad we never got that we were supposed to get was from Kevin Smith, and that was a reboot of Fletch, starring Jason Smith Jason Lee as as the aforementioned Fletch. I think they would be perfect because a lot of what I love about Jason Lee in those movies is that he kind of does Chevy Chase. That's sort of his shtick. Like, you see, kids, a car is, you hear him just doing that phrasing from time to time. And God, I love those Fletch movies, but I think that would have been a fun project. So.
Yeah. I was going to say a lot of the older actors too, to watch a sequel with the old actors in them, you got to give more props to the actors because, they're 20 more years in experience, and they're going to be a whole lot better actors anyway, just through the years of experience. So.
Yeah, unless they haven't taken care of themselves. Some people have gone downhill and they get a little podgery in their old age, like Chevy Chase. No one wants to work with him right now because he's just such a dick to everybody. In fact, something to do with Kevin Smith and Fletch. He ended up having a phone call with Chevy Chase, and by the end of it, Kevin Smith was just pretty much disgusted with the guy. He was just like, fuck, what a dick, for absolutely no reason. He was just completely mean and rude, and I don't remember where I heard that. Maybe it was on one of the podcasts, and he didn't get super deep about it, but you could tell that Kevin was completely disenfranchised with him. And I hear that from almost everybody now, talking about Chevy Chase, like they just don't want to work with him.
That's a real shame. Mm-hmm. Here's a fun one. Stranger Things star Millie Bobby Brown, who plays Eleven, has vocally put it out there that she wants to play a young Princess Leia in future Star Wars films if they'll consider her. Now, I think this is interesting because I got a picture here of them side by side, Carrie Fisher and.
Well, I'm picturing her in my head, and it works. Yeah.
Just take a look at that and tell me that wouldn't be adorable. First off.
Now, I guess they're talking. Is she talking like right away, like a young Princess Leia, super young?
Well, I would imagine that we are going to probably see more pre-story Starquel. Oh my God, Star Wars stuff.
That was your best sentence yet. Starquels. Starquels. Henceforth. Where did you send this? Oh, Facebook.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, you put those buns up there, and boy, the chin and lips are really kind of striking similarities.
Mm-hmm. Cheeks.
Yeah, I could see that. Put buns over those ears, and you've got yourself Princess Leia, a tiny little Princess Leia. Well, she kind of looks, in a way, like Natalie Portman too. Sometimes,
yeah, that's true.
Me,
I see that.
Who is now tied to the franchise as well? Who played Princess Leia's mom in the prequels? Right? Spoilers.
Correct.
Wait, is that right? Yeah. I would love to see. The more I think about though, going back, even though they already did this with Anakin, obviously, thinking about doing like kid versions of the Star Wars people reminds me of Muppet Babies.
Yeah,
it'd basically be like Star Wars babies.
There's a certain point where you just got to let it go. Like
they won't. They won't.
Because the movie started when Luke was fucking basically
like
a teenager,
17, yeah.
So it's like, how much shit could Princess Leia have done before? You know what I mean? Like,
no shit, son. You have no idea what Princess Leia
I suppose you could come up with some fucking bullshit, but
during her troubled youth years, you kidding me, son?
But she's living.
Never fucked a princess
in a court. She's living like she's an aristocrat. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Anyways, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna throw it out there. We might see a little Alderaan style. See why they really needed to put the hair up in buns. Anyway.
Oh yes.
Well, did you guys have anything more to throw out before we get on out of here?
Yeah.
No,
we got cut off there for a minute, so I think we're just going to wrap her on up. We got everything out of the we wanted to.
I got that. I still got those small stories, but I mean, it's like we're like fucking.
For fuck's sake, Lau.
Come on, the good ones.
Yeah, and we're just making a 2-hour show. Mm-hmm. Well, bring them next week.
Yeah, that's all good.
Front and foremost, we'll start with your tiny little stories. Tiny stories. Until then, ron@boronfilms.com. Send us your show ideas. Send us your emails, suggestions. We've got a good pile of emails working up toward another feedback show in the not too distant future. You can join us at talesfromthespacepod.com. If you're curious to follow the gallery doings, radarstationart.com. Other than that, tune in next week. We will be talking about 9/11. And if you are anywhere near Wenatchee, Washington for this Friday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, Apple Blossom, and First Friday Art Walk, do join us for Shen Leidy's art show at the Radar Station Gallery in downtown Wenatchee, Washington, 115 South Wenatchee Ave. 4 to 9 p.m. We'll be rocking and rolling all evening long. It's going to be a fabulous time, and that is our grand opening. Lots of exciting stuff. And as promised before, there will be some Tales from the Space Pod on cassette, so you're going to want to get there early for that. I promise these things will be selling like crazy. Other than that, tune in next week, 9/11.
9/11.
Night, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Eating your own boogers.